My 30th birthday was supposed to be a big deal. 30, a milestone. I'd spent weeks trying to convince myself I was excited, even though my phone was mostly buzzing with generic, happy early birthday texts from distant relatives and the usual spam. No actual invite. Nothing from my parents, my sister, no one in my immediate family. That should have been my first clue, I guess. The real gut punch came from Rachel, my older cousin, who's always been more like a sister. She's 33 and the only one in the family who seems to have a functioning empathy chip. Her text came late Tuesday night. Hey, about your party. It's Saturday. I'm so sorry, Gianna. My party? What party? I typed back. What are you talking about? Her reply was a string of frantic messages. Mom and Dad are throwing you a surprise party at their house, but you're not invited. They said it was to avoid drama because Zion and Delilah are going to be there, and Delilah's pregnant, so they want everything harmonious. My ex-husband, Zion, is 32. His new wife, Delilah, is 28 and pregnant, and my parents, Madison, 56, and Marcus, 61, were throwing me a surprise party that I, the birthday girl, was explicitly excluded from. All to make their golden boy and his new pregnant wife comfortable. The sheer audacity of it made my blood run cold. I called my mom, Madison, immediately. Her voice, when she answered, was laced with that familiar saccharine sweetness she uses when she's about to deliver a blow. Oh, honey, Rachel told you, didn't she? We just thought, with everything, it would be best if you just rose above it, for everyone's sake. Rose above it? I repeated, my voice tight. You're throwing me a party and telling me not to come so my ex husband and his pregnant new wife can celebrate in my place? The familiar sting of being the family scapegoat, the one always expected to compromise, to forgive, to rise above, was a bitter taste in my mouth. It brought back a flood of memories, all the times they'd sided with Zion, all the times they'd minimized my pain. I hung up before I said something I'd regret. Instead, I booked myself a solo spa weekend, a desperate attempt to outrun the humiliation and anger that was bubbling inside me. I just needed to get away from their charade. Later that night, trying to distract myself, I was deleting old emails when I stumbled across a thread from 2 years ago, right after my divorce. It was between my parents and Zion. The subject line, Ray, the situation. My stomach dropped as I scrolled through, realizing they weren't just covering for him emotionally, they were actively helping him manage the fallout, even discussing how to spin things to mutual acquaintances. My parents had been protecting Zion and Delilah even then. The spa was exactly what I needed, and simultaneously, the worst place to be. Surrounded by serene music and the scent of lavender, my mind kept replaying the last 2 years. My marriage to Zion had imploded, not with a bang, but a slow, agonizing leak. He'd started his affair with Delilah almost a year before I found out. When I finally confronted him, he played the victim, the misunderstood husband. My family, bless their hearts, had rallied around him. Family counseling, Madison had insisted, dragging Marquis along. It was a farce. Every session felt like an intervention for me, not Zion. Gianna, he made a mistake, Madison would say, her eyes pleading. But he's family. You have to forgive him for appearance's sake. Marquise just nodded, perpetually in agreement with whatever Madison decided. They wanted me to sweep it under the rug, to preserve the image of our perfect family, even if it meant sacrificing my own dignity. Zion, ever the charismatic manipulator, played his part beautifully, remorseful, yet subtly blaming me for his unhappiness. I remember the day I finally walked away. 2 years ago. It was the hardest thing I'd ever done. And then, a few months later, the mysterious $100,000. I'd given it to my parents, ostensibly to help with some renovations they'd been putting off. They'd been thrilled, of course, and immediately started telling everyone I'd won the lottery or made a savvy investment. It was a ridiculous cover story, but they clung to it, never asking too many questions, just happy for the windfall. The real story behind that money was far more complicated and far more damning. Sitting by the infinity pool, phone in hand, I typed out a message to Palmer. Palmer Steele, my lawyer, was 42, sharp as a tack, and had seen me through the ugliest parts of my divorce. He was more of an ally than a legal advisor at this point. My family is throwing me a surprise 30th birthday party this Saturday, I wrote, and I'm not invited because Zion and pregnant Delilah will be there. They want harmony. His reply was almost immediate. Unbelievable. What's your play, Gianna? I don't know, I typed back, but I'm so sick of being the bigger person. I'm thinking of sending them a little thank you video for the party. Just a sweet, innocent message. I added a winking emoji, but the idea, initially a joke, started to solidify. Palmer, ever the pragmatist, responded, "Be careful, Gianna. Secrets have a way of causing legal ripples. But I'm here if you need me to draft anything. Or just watch the fireworks." The thought of those fireworks, of finally exposing the truth, felt dangerously appealing. The thank you video idea wasn't just a joke anymore, it was a plan. The $100,000 I'd given my parents 2 years ago wasn't from a lottery win. It was a legal settlement, a payout I received for exposing a massive corporate fraud scheme that Zion, my then husband, was deeply involved in. And not just Zion. Delilah's father, Jared Woods, a man who flaunted his wealth and influence, was the architect of the whole thing. He was 59, a powerful figure in the tech industry, and notoriously shady. I'd stumbled upon the evidence by accident digging through Zion's laptop during one of our reconciliation attempts. It was too big to ignore. Palmer had been instrumental in navigating the legal minefield. He'd ensured my anonymity as a whistleblower, securing a substantial settlement in exchange for my cooperation with the authorities. That settlement was the $100,000 I'd given my parents, a sum I'd hoped would buy me some peace, maybe even some affection. Instead, it bought them a new kitchen and a convenient lie. "So, you want to drop a truth bomb at your own birthday party?" Palmer said, a slight smirk playing on his lips as we talked on the phone the next morning. I was still at the spa, but my focus had shifted from relaxation to meticulous planning. "I can get you copies of the court filings, the settlement agreement, maybe even some of those incriminating emails and transaction records you found. Digital proof is powerful." "Yes," I confirmed, my voice steady. "I want them to know. All of them, especially Zion and Delilah. And Gerard." Palmer sent over a secure link, and within minutes I had everything: redacted court documents, screenshots of emails between Zion and Gerard discussing illicit transfers, even a few internal company memos that detailed the fraud. It was all there, undeniable. I spent the rest of the day crafting my message. I wanted it to start sweet, disarmingly so. "Hi, everyone. Just wanted to send a huge thank you for thinking of me on my 30th birthday." I practiced my lines in front of the mirror, aiming for a tone that was sincere at first, then subtly shifted to devastating. Palmer helped me refine the script, making sure it was legally sound, avoiding direct accusations that could backfire, but letting the evidence speak for itself. A knot of anxiety tightened in my stomach. Was this right? Was I stooping to their level? The thought of the legal fallout, the potential for an even bigger family explosion, made me tremble. But then I remembered the emails from my parents covering for Zion, the rise above its speech, the years of being overlooked. What would they have done if the roles were reversed? They wouldn't have hesitated. They would have protected their own, just as they were doing now for Zion and Delilah. My phone buzzed, startling me. It was Charlie, my younger sister, 27, usually so eager to please and blissfully unaware of the deeper family currents. Her text was panicked. "Gianna, Delilah just told me she's making a toast at the party about forgiveness and family on your birthday. You have to see this." Saturday evening. I wasn't at my parents' house, obviously. I was still at the spa, trying to look serene while my stomach churned. Rachel, my cousin, was my eyes and ears. She'd agreed to record snippets of the party on her phone, sending them to me discreetly. The first few clips showed my parents' living room decorated with balloons and a happy 30th Gianna banner. The irony was a physical ache. Then came the clip of Delilah. She was radiant, as Charlie had put it, her hand resting protectively on her visibly pregnant belly. Zion stood beside her, his arm around her waist, both of them beaming. My parents, Madison and Marquis, hovered nearby, looking like proud grandparents to be. The room was full of familiar faces: aunts, uncles, family friends, all fawning over the happy couple. Delilah, clutching a champagne flute, presumably sparkling cider, tapped it with a spoon. "I just wanted to make a toast," she announced, her voice sweet and clear, "to Gianna on her special day, and to forgiveness, and family, and new beginnings." My blood ran cold. She was really doing it. That was my cue. I'd already sent the video file to Rachel along with instructions. She was to send it to my mom's phone, disguised as a happy birthday message from me with a note saying, "Mom, please play this for everyone." Madison, always eager for a moment of performative family unity, would fall for it. And she did. Rachel texted me a minute later. "She's playing it on the big screen." My video started. My face, smiling, filled the screen. "Hi, everyone. Just wanted to send a huge thank you for thinking of me on my 30th birthday. It means so much to know you're all celebrating." I paused, letting the saccharine sweetness sink in. I have so many wonderful memories of growing up with you all, and I'm truly grateful for everything, especially for the past 2 years, and for the support you've shown me. The smiles in Rachel's video feed were wide, complacent. Madison looked pleased. Zion and Delilah exchanged a smug glance, then my tone shifted. "Speaking of gratitude, I wanted to clear up a little misunderstanding about the $100,000 I gave mom and dad a couple of years ago. Remember how everyone thought I'd won the lottery? Well, that wasn't quite right." My smile tightened. "The truth is, that money was a legal settlement, a whistleblower payout, actually, for exposing corporate fraud." The smiles in the room faltered. Madison frowned, a flicker of confusion crossing her face. Zion's jaw tightened. "And who was involved in this fraud, you ask?" I continued, my voice now devoid of any pretense of sweetness. "Well, it turns out my ex husband, Zion, was quite a key player, as was Delilah's father, Gerard Woods." On the screen, my face was replaced by a series of documents: screenshots of emails between Zion and Gerard, bank transaction records detailing illicit transfers, and redacted court filings. Names, dates, figures, all laid bare. "These are just a few of the receipts," I said, my voice echoing through the stunned silence of my parents' living room. Proof of their little scheme, the same scheme that earned me a very generous settlement. The party guests froze, champagne flutes halfway to their lips. Madison's hand flew to her mouth. Zion looked like he'd been punched. Delilah's face went from radiant to ashen. Rachel's video feed showed people pulling out their phones, not to record the party, but to check news sites, to whisper. The room was buzzing, but not with celebration. It was the sound of a bomb detonating. My phone began to vibrate, a flurry of incoming calls and texts. The video ended, leaving a deafening silence in my parents' living room. Rachel's feed, shaky now, showed Madison staring at the blank screen, her mouth agape. Marquis looked utterly bewildered, his usual detached demeanor shattered. Then the chaos erupted. "What is this, Gianna?" Zion's voice boomed, raw with fury and panic. He lunged towards the TV as if he could somehow unplay the truth. "This is insane. She's lying. All of it." But his eyes darted around the room, betraying his fear. Delilah, her face blotchy and pale, suddenly clutched her stomach and bolted for the nearest restroom, her earlier radiance replaced by sheer terror. Guests who moments ago were clinking glasses now exchanged horrified whispers. Some were openly scrolling on their phones, their faces a mixture of shock and morbid fascination. I could see them, even through Rachel's shaky camera, confirming the news. The digital evidence I'd laid out was already being cross referenced, verified. Gerard Woods, Delilah's father, who had been chatting animatedly in a corner, suddenly went rigid. His phone, which had been buzzing incessantly since my video started, now rang with an insistent, shrill tone. He glanced at the caller ID, his face draining of color, and quickly excused himself, muttering something about a business emergency as he practically ran out the front door. He wasn't just getting calls from business partners. I knew his lawyer would be on the line too. From my spa room, miles away, I watched it all unfold. A strange mix of satisfaction and nausea churned within me. Was it worth it? The years of being the family's emotional punching bag, the constant expectation to rise above it, the way they'd protected Zion and Delilah at my expense, all of it had led to this moment. Seeing their faces, the unraveling of their carefully constructed facade, was a potent drug. But my hands were trembling, a cold sweat breaking out on my forehead. The silence in my room was a stark contrast to the cacophony I was witnessing. My phone, which had been vibrating nonstop, finally rang with a familiar contact. It was Rachel. Her voice, when I answered, was shaking, a mixture of awe and fear. "Gianna." she whispered. It's all coming out. Everyone's talking, and you're trending on social media. Warrior Gianna exposed. The aftermath was swift and brutal. My parents, Madison and Marcus, were suddenly pariahs in their own social circle. Rachel told me their phones hadn't stopped ringing all night and into the next day, not with well wishes, but with questions, accusations, and thinly veiled judgment from neighbors and church friends who had always admired their perfect family. Their carefully constructed image of respectability was crumbling. Zion's company, already under scrutiny, saw its shares plummet. The news of his involvement in Gerard Woods's fraud scheme hit the financial wires almost immediately after my video went viral. Regulators were circling, and I knew it was only a matter of time before formal charges were brought. Gerard, I heard through Palmer, was already facing a full blown police investigation, his lawyers scrambling to contain the damage. The empire he'd built on shady dealings was now teetering on the brink. A few hours after the party imploded, my phone buzzed with a call from Charlie. Her voice was small, choked with tears. Gianna, why? Why did you do this? Mom and Dad are devastated. Delilah's a mess. Everyone's saying terrible things. Charlie, I said, my voice softer than I expected, but firm. Do you remember growing up? Do you remember how it always felt like I was the one who had to be okay no matter what? The one who had to forgive, who had to rise above? While Zion got a pass, while you got the praise, while my parents always put appearances first. There was a long silence on her end. But it's Mom and Dad, she finally whispered. And I'm their daughter, I countered. But they chose Zion and Delilah over me. They threw me a party and then told me not to come. They covered for a criminal and then lied about where their new kitchen money came from. This wasn't just about revenge, Charlie. This was about finally telling the truth after years of being silenced and forgotten. Another message popped up on my screen, this one from Palmer. You're protected, Gianna. Your whistleblower status is ironclad, but now you're infamous. The story's everywhere. I felt a strange mix of vindication and a chilling awareness of the path I'd chosen. Later that night, as I packed up my things at the spa, ready to face the real world, my phone lit up with a notification. A new voicemail. It was Madison. Her voice, usually so controlled, was raw with fury and anguish. Gianna, she began, not even bothering with a greeting. You have destroyed this family, everything we built. How could you do this to us, to your own mother and father? You have ruined everything. The message ended abruptly, leaving me with the echo of her scathing accusation. Back in my own apartment, the silence was heavy, broken only by the hum of my refrigerator. Madison's furious voicemail replayed in my head, a constant loop of accusation. Guilt gnawed at me, a sharp, unwelcome guest. Had I gone too far? Had I truly destroyed my family, or merely exposed what was already broken? The pride, the fierce satisfaction I'd felt watching their world crumble, warred with a deep, unsettling sadness. This wasn't just about them. It was about me, too. It was about the years of hurt, the feeling of being invisible. My phone vibrated again, a message from an unknown number. I hesitated, then opened it. It was Zion. His words were a torrent of rage and desperation. You ruined everything, Gianna. My career, my life. You think you're so smart, but you're just a bitter, vengeful ex wife. You'll regret this. I'll make sure you regret this. He blamed me for his downfall, for the consequences of his own actions. The message ended with a thinly veiled threat, a desperate lashing out from a cornered man. A cold calm settled over me. The guilt, for a moment, evaporated, replaced by a steel hard resolve. This was it. The final bridge. I dictated a reply, my fingers steady. You ruined your own life, Zion. I just held up a mirror. Don't contact me again. I hit send, then blocked his number. There was no going back now. The press, like vultures, began circling Delilah and Gerard. With Zion's company in freefall and the police investigation into Gerard gaining traction, their roles in the fraud became prime fodder for every news outlet. Delilah, who had once been the radiant, pregnant new wife, was now a figure of public scrutiny, her family's reputation in tatters. Gerard's carefully cultivated image as a shrewd, respectable businessman was irrevocably shattered. A week later, a thick envelope arrived in the mail. The return address was a law firm I recognized from Palmer's documents. My heart hammered against my ribs as I tore it open. Inside was a formal summons. I was being called as a witness in Gerard Woods's criminal trial. The revolution I'd started was far from over, it was only just beginning. The summons was just the beginning. The next few months were a blur of legal proceedings, media scrutiny, and a strange, unsettling quiet from my family. I testified in Gerard Woods's trial, laying out the evidence, my voice steady despite the weight of the courtroom. It was exhausting, but each word felt like a brick being laid in the foundation of my new, honest life. My 31st birthday arrived, a full year after the surprise party I wasn't invited to. This time, there were no expectations, no frantic texts, no hidden agendas. I spent it alone, by choice at a small cafe I liked, reading a book. My phone was quiet, and for the first time in a long time, that felt like peace. Madison and Marquis's reputation never recovered. The whispers, the judgment from their social circle eventually forced them to sell the house and move to a different town. Rachel told me they were living a much quieter life now, far from the spotlight they once craved. Zion faced charges, and the last I heard, he was preparing for a lengthy legal battle, his career and public image in ruins. Gerard Woods was indicted, his empire crumbling around him, and Delilah, no longer radiant, had filed for divorce, seeking to distance herself from the wreckage of her father's crimes and her husband's downfall. The baby, I heard, was born healthy, but into a world of fractured families and legal battles. I didn't hear from Charlie directly after our last conversation, but Rachel, bless her, remained fiercely loyal. She'd seen the truth finally, and our bond had deepened into something unbreakable. She was the only family I had left, and she was enough. Looking back, the revenge hadn't healed the old wounds. The years of feeling overlooked, the sting of betrayal, those scars remained. But it had done something else. It had exposed the rot, leveled the playing field, and forced everyone to confront the truth they'd so desperately tried to bury. I was no longer the family's emotional scapegoat, the one expected to rise above. I was Gianna, a woman who had chosen herself, who had found her voice, and who had finally, irrevocably, reclaimed